Hi all, good morning. Hope you all are doing good. So in this video, we are going to explore the RDD data frame and Spark SQL, right? With the help of a program that is word count, right? So what we'll be doing basically is like we'll be creating a Python list, right? From there we'll be creating one RDD. We'll understand what is RDD and all, right? Then we'll be creating a data frame. We'll try to understand how it works. We'll create the data frame on top of the Python list that we have taken. And using that, we are going to do the word count program. Similarly, we'll be exploring the how do you do the word count using our Spark SQL, right? So now finally, we'll be comparing the result and we'll see. So basically, we are trying to understand the basic building block of uh, the Spark program, right? Which is RDD. Like in order to understand like how it functions internally, right? RDD is a core element where we should focus mainly to build understanding on the Spark programming and how it deals with internally, right? So we should understand all that. For that reason only, we are trying to create this program so that we'll be building a solid foundation of like how whenever we are trying to write any program, if you are going with the lower level API or higher level API, how it is being dealt internally, right? So that is our main intention. So for that reason only, we are trying to learn this, write this program. Okay. So, so before we start working on the program directly, right? I just wanted to go through this one once. So what is RDD? So RDD is a resilient distributed data set, which is the fundamental data structure in Spark, right? So which is immutable distributed collection of objects. So generally, whenever we create any variable in Python, right, that is lives in the driver memory locally. But when we are creating any object out, I mean RDD out of it, right, using the parallelize method available in Spark Context API, right? So that is going to be distributed across the cluster. So when it comes to a local a variable of Python, it is not going to be distributed. But when we are dealing with huge volume of data, right, it is important for us to understand like how the data is getting distributed in the cluster to do parallel processing, right? So for that we are using RDD. And if you see whenever we whenever we are creating any RDD, right? If you are trying to load any data to a RDD, right, it is not going to store it to that variable particularly. It is going to store it across the cluster by distributing based on the split size and all that. That we are not going to go that in detail, but you should understand and remember now. Okay, it is not going whenever we are doing a RDD, the data is going to split it across cluster and it is going to help with the parallel processing, right? So when it comes to comparison of what is RDD, data frame, and Spark level, Spark SQL, right? So it's a low level abstraction, immutable distributed collection of objects, right? So no schema is attached to RDD. Generally, whenever we are dealing with RDD, there is no schema attached to that, right? But when we come to uh, data frame, it is a high level abstraction over RDD, and schema is attached to this one, right? And here we get good performance when we come to data frame because it is it uses the catalyst optimizer. For that we'll get good performance, right? And when it comes to Spark SQL, right, again it is a wrapper on top of this data frame where it enables us to write SQL kind of queries where we can create a temporary view or global temporary view or table, and we can write SQL like queries here, right? So these are the three different things that we will be exploring doing the exploring with the word count program, right? So I have one more diagram where we'll be doing a deep dive on like while writing the program, we'll try to understand okay how it is the data is going flowing internally, right? So we'll be seeing step by step. We'll come to this one once we start practical. Okay. So now without further delay, let's start doing the practical, right? So here let's go to our Azure portal and we'll be opening the database cluster, right? So go to home look for this cluster that we are being using, which you have created, right? So I'm just going to come here. I'm not going to open the storage because we are not going to touch storage now. We are just going to read the data from a list, right? Python collection list, right? So I'm just going to open that. Go to workspace. We'll create a new workspace, right? You just create a notebook, right? Okay, so we'll just check it whether we have any other I mean the compute is already active or no, it is not active, right? So you need to start that. Either you can start it from here. Let's while writing the program itself, we'll go there and write it, right? So what we'll do now, we'll understand what is the program we have written, right? So let's go here. This is the program that is already written. I'm just going to explore, I mean, explain you how we are going to explore this, right? So, uh, just going to. So now, if you see, here is the program that I have written to do the word count. Whenever we are passing few lines, right? We are just going to do the word count using the first approach. We are trying to go with the using RDD. The second approach, we are going to go with the DataFrame API, and the third one, it is going to be with the PySpark SQL, right? So these three ways we will be doing the word count program, but the main thing that we'll be trying to explore here is the RDD one, because that is the basic thing that we need to understand how it is functioning internally in the lower level API style, right? So whenever generally, even if in the interviews, right, they will try to understand your basic understanding level of the RDD. Even if you're not writing the code in the RDD, whenever there is a need, we need to write the code in the low level API, which is RDD. But mostly we'll be using DataFrame and Spark SQL. But interviewer will try to understand your understanding on this RDD level to just understand like how you're understanding on the distributed computing, right? So now, so without further delay, let me copy this one. So we'll be let's copy the code to the workspace directly, and I mean the notebook, and directly we'll start checking it there, right? We'll run it and we'll try to understand. Okay, so I'm just going to copy the code, tell this one, so that we'll just okay, so let's understand it here. Okay, so what we are trying to do, so generally what I'm trying to do, method one, we are just trying to explore the Spark RTD style programming, where we'll see how we can count the word count, right? So we'll come to this points, right? So you see, we need to import few functions which we are going to use below, right? So we'll be importing from PySpark, right? The package will be importing the split, explore, and column functions, right? So if you see, we need to import those because we are going to use them, since it needs to be available from the Python library, right? So that's why we're importing it from there. So now if you see here, right, generally, ideally, we choose it, I mean, we load that data from a file, but here I'm not going that way the same way, because we have already seen last time, okay, how we read the file from a ADLS into storage, right? But now, just wanted to show you this style of writing, like whenever we are doing a in real time, right? Whenever the file is not available, we kind of create a list and do the testing until the file is ready in the source location, right? So this is also one way of learning. We should know like how to create a RDD out of a list and explore further, right? So here what we are trying to do is like we are just trying to do the word count. We are just passing a list of words here like sentences, and we will be, what is our problem statement is we are just trying to see how many times hello is passed, how many times how are written, and all that, right? So we're just going trying to see. If you see here, 4 times hello is there, so we are just trying to count the word. So it is very simple, but we need to understand the underlying concept of it, like what are all transformations that we are using when we are dealing with RDD, right? That is the main thing that we are trying to learn here. So this is a list, right? Now, what I'm trying to do, I'm just printing some print statement just for better readability in the output when we are getting it, right? It is nothing to do with deal with the code, right? So now, so we are just creating the, I think it is, okay. So we have created this list. Two times it is copied. No, right. We are importing state. Okay, I think it is not needed. This part, it is copied 2 times, but that's fine. So we are trying to create a list, right? We're trying to create a list first where we'll be having this words, sentences, right? From where we'll be counting the word count, right? So now, if you see, I'm going to create one RDD using the parallelize method available in Spark context. So whenever we are, see, what is Spark here, right? Spark is the session object that we get here by default. So we are not creating the Spark session object, but since we are going to deal with a lower level API, that is RDD, we need to have the Spark context being available. Then only we'll be able to use this method where we'll be converting this Python list to our RDD, right? So this line of code is being used to create one RDD, spark context parallelize, where we'll be passing the list that we are creating here, right? So the list that we have created here, that will be passing it here to convert it to a RDD. So when it is a list, right, it will be there in the driver memory. But when we are trying to create one RDD out of it, right, it is going to be distributed across the cluster, right? So I have written few print statement just to show you like what is all, and I'm just trying to show you here. Okay, after we create this RDD, right, we'll just try to print the type of RDD so that it will give the details. We'll try to understand that. Only for the first time, we are just going to do it just for understanding. Other than that, we don't need to. So just to show you, okay, once we uh, pass this my list to the parallelize function, it is going to create an array. That is the main intention. So now then we'll be collecting. This is just print statement just for understanding, right? So now let me run this one and we'll see a RDD will be created. Let's try to understand that. Okay. So it will take some time. So we'll be seeing it step by step. So what we're trying to do here, let's go along with the diagram now. So what we are trying to do here is we are trying to create the RDD1. So what we'll be doing in that RDD, right? So it is a transformation which is going to create our list to, which is going to convert our list to our RTD, right? So this, in this state we are in currently. So this is what we are trying to do. It is running. It will take some time for the compute engine to start. Right. So in the meantime, it starts. Let's try to understand, okay, what is this from, right? Import specific function from module. And this is a package, Spark package, right? And SQL is the package of DataFrame and Spark SQL operations, right? And function here is a module containing the built-in DataFrame functions, right? And the split function is being used to split a string column into a array of words, right? So we are going to use this. We have used it here. We are going to use that below, and we have explode converts each array element into a separate row, right? So we'll see that practically. And column refers to a data frame column, right? So we understood this one, and we understood this one. We are just taking it just to explore the how we can write with without a file reading, right? From ADLS, we can create a list and we can just test it locally, right? So we don't need the file. We just need to have what we have in the file and what is our requirement. Based on that, we can create a list and we can take that, right? So now if you see what is here, Spark is a Spark session object, right? Spark context is the core execution engine of Spark, responsible for communicating to the cluster and creating RDDs, right? So Spark has two major APIs like Spark session that we are dealing with. When it comes to Spark session, it works with structured data like data frame, dataset, catalog, reader API, writer API, and all that, right? So, but when it comes to Spark session, a Spark context, when we are going to deal with the lower level API, which is RDD and parallelized text and all this, right? So Spark context is the core execution engine, Apache Spark that we have mentioned it here, I guess. And why we are using Spark context? Because parallelized belongs to Spark context. If you are not going to use Spark context here, will not be explore this functionality of this parallelized, right? So for that reason, we are using Spark context here. So now let it run, then we'll come to this point. So we're just trying to print the type of RDD that we have created so that we can explore what are all this that we're getting. In the output, we'll be getting this. That's why I printed it here. I'll just show you and we'll explain this all, right? So let's wait for some time. This understanding of RDD is very important from interview standpoint. Even if you are not writing the code in a regular basis on the RDD side, mostly it will be data frame and Spark SQL level of API that you will be using. But understanding of this RDD needs to be there if you are going for interview, right? And for building the understanding of this company, how it works internally. So when we come to Spark, right, it is all about distributed processing, right? It is no more in the single machine. You process, I mean, you read the data and load it to RDD or data frame. It is going to be distributed to support you for parallel processing, right? So whenever here the where the data we have is just few KBs, right? Or few KBs. But when in real time it comes up few GBs of data, 10 GB, 20 GB data, right? That time parallel processing will be coming into picture and will really help to do parallel processing based on the different task running in parallel based on the cores available for the cluster that you have taken, right? Just waiting for this to kickstart and then we'll go to this one, right? So let's wait for here for some time. Now. Now. So what it has done is like we have created this RDD, right? Just created the RDD and we are trying to print the type of this RDD, right? Let's say what output it is giving, right? It is of class PySpark.core.rdd.data type. So let's try to understand the same thing. What we are seeing it here is like I've just printed it here so that. So what is type here, right? Is a built-in Python function that returns the object's data type, right? So for that reason, I have just to show you, okay, this is the RDD we have written this line. So now, what is class? Indicates the object belongs to the Python class, right? For that, we are seeing class here. Now, if you see what is PySpark here, like it's PySpark is a library, right? And core is the core module of PySpark. Similarly, RDD is the module where the RDD implementation exists, right? It's a module of RDD implementation, right? So, what is RDD again? The class of which RDD1 is an object, right? So, we understood like now what is all this. So, now we are trying to collect whatever is there in the RDD. This is one action, right? Whenever we write it, transformation and action are two things are there. Transformation are lazy and we know in Spark, and this is the action. Whenever it encounters the RDD encounters one action, right? We are going to just there going to be one DAG entry created for this one, but we are not going to go in that level of detail. But now you see the RDD is created and it holds this data, right? Now in the image also you see the first step we have created this one. Now we'll go to the second step, right? What we are trying to do in the second step is like, so here we have the data in this format, in the array format, right? So now we are just trying to see, we are just trying to flatten the data where lambda is an anonymous function and each line here, this is one line, this is one line, this is one line, right? Each of this is one line here. So I have taken this as a line. We are going to split that based on the space, right? If you see, we are just trying to split it based on the space so that we can flatten this data, right? So let's try to see, like whenever we are using this flat map, it's a transformation. Let's go to this one. The data should become like this after applying this transformation, right? So let's run this one and see whether it is, you see, it has flattened the data based on the, it has split based on the split and flattened the data based on spaces here, right? So each row is now here is considered as one row, right? Now that we have used flat map, what does flat map do here is like takes one input record and produces many outputs, right? This is what we have seen. There is a function of it has taken one input line and produces many output lines, right? So that we have seen. So this is a very important function from Spark side, I mean from RDD side, right? So now, so we have seen like we have taken, we have loaded this data to RDD, and now we are based on the space, we are splitting it and creating multiple rows here, right? So now the next step would be we'll be mapping one column. Just I'll just show you that. Okay, so now let me run this one. We'll try to understand what it does. Like map function is a function, a transformation, right? Here it appends one, like it takes each line as an input, and for each input it will have one output, right? So n input and n output, right? So if you see here, like it has taken this line and added appended one. Why we have added one here is just to do a aggregation after this step, right? We are just going to do a aggregation, right? After this step. That's the reason we have added one, so that we'll group by this key here. It is a key and it's a value, right? It's a key value pair. Now it has become a tuple, right? It's a key value pair. So we are going to group by this key and aggregate this value so that we'll get the word count. That is how, that is what we're trying to do it, right? So now if you go to the image, this is what it has done, right? So if you see, what is the explanation here? Applies a function to each input record and returns one output record, right? For each input, there will be one output record. This is what we have done it. So this is what we are seeing in the output as well, right? So now if you see, we are seeing that in this output, right? So what is going to be next? Now we are going to use reduce by key, right? So what is reduce by key? We'll see now. Let's take all this. I'm just going to take this one, paste here. So why we are using reduce by key now? So it's also a transformation which is going to group by this data, sort it, then we are going to aggregate it, right? So we need to sum all these values, right? Wherever once we group by it, we are going to sum the values. So let's go to this diagram and try to understand what it does, right? So now if you see, what is the explanation for this reduce by key is, reduce by key groups the same words and sums the counts, right? It aggregates value based on the key value, right? So groups value with the same key and reduces them using a reduce function, right? So here that's what we are trying to do here, right? So now we are just trying to use reduce by key to aggregate the value based on the keys, right? Where a shuffle will happen since we are grouping based on the key, right? And the data is distributed already. So to do an aggregate count, right? Data has to travel, I mean, data has to be there in one partition, then only will be aggregate, right? So now, see, if you see, we are just trying to collect and we are just trying to display that. So now we should get the word count. Display function is available with the Spark, right? We can get the result. So you see how many times was is there, how many times hello is there, how many times how is there, all that count we have got it, right? So in the image, if you see, we are done with this one. So how it works is actually like here, if you see, right, in this function, x is the running aggregate value and y is the next value to be merged with the aggregate. Based on that, like if you see initially, let's say if this is a key value pair, right, and we have this many values which we have in one partition after the shuffle happens, right? So now if you see first line, right, what is the value of x? It is 1. Value of y is the next value, right? If you consider this at any point of time, you consider this first 2 points, right? First 2 lines, hello 1, hello 1. So initially the value of hello is 1, but when what is the next value is 1, right? 1 plus 1 is equal to 2. So the aggregated value of x now becomes 2, right? So here you see aggregated value is 2. The next value is 1, so this is 1. Now it becomes 3. So similarly, it unless until it find all the values are being aggregated, it keeps summing and finally we get the value 4, right? So similarly it works. So this reduce by function works that way. So now we have seen this practically, we have done the word count, right? So now that I have seen it, like how we can, let me just do a recap of this RDD, how we have done the word count. So we have taken this, we have imported the functions that is needed. We have created a Python list, okay, of words, sentences, right? Then we have created one RDD using the parallelized method available in Spark Context API, and we have seen whether it is really a RDD data type or not. Yeah, after that, we have seen that we have verified it is a RDD data type, that you can see it here. Then we try to flatten the values like based on the space. Each for each input line, there is multiple rows being created here using this flat map function, right? Then we have used the map function and added one value here just to make it as a tuple, because our next function, which is reduce by key, is going to accept key value pairs, right? So now in this tuple we have added it. For each value we are going to append one here. This is how it comes with the output of this after this map function is applied, and right, then we have applied the reduce by key and we have seen like how we have got the final output after everything got aggregated based on the key, right? So using RDD we have done this one now. Now let's see. With RDD we are done, right? We have seen everything. So now let's go to the, I'll just copy this one now. Once you understand that right, it is going to become easy. The similar way, you're just going to create one more code snippet, and you see it is just a sprint statement. Here I have some comments for better understanding, right? So what we are trying to do it here is like from that list, right? We are trying to my list, right? We have created from that my list. We are trying to create one data frame, right? You see, Spark.create data frame one function is there. Using that, we are going to create a list. So now if you see, try to understand what we are trying to do in this line of code is like Spark is a just an object that, you know, create data frame is a method used to create Spark data frame, right? And what is this one is here is in my list for, so one item sentence from my list. So what it does is like it is going to create a tuple as we have done it above, right? From the my list and give a name as sentence, right? Name of the data frame column is sentence. So we'll create a data frame and we'll give the name as sentence. Now, once we have the sentence ready, we are just going to split it based on the columns here. We'll use the split function again here, which is available in DataFrame API as well. And we'll explode this, we'll use explode function. Instead of flat map that we have used there, right? We are going to use explode here and give a name as what? It's a alias name that we are going to give to that one. And once we have this splitted data, right? Splitted data, we are just going to do on top of this, right? We are just going to group by word and do a count. And we are just ordering by, right? So same thing that we have done it here. The way is different here. The way of writing the code is different. But we are trying to achieve the same thing here as well. We have created one data frame where we are trying to give the data frame a column name as sentence, right? And in that sentence, what we'll be having is like the same data that we'll be having in the sentences, right? If you see, this is the data we'll be having. This is one sentence, this is one sentence and all that, right? This is one sentence, this is one sentence. Similarly, we'll be having it over there in the sentence, and which is going to be splitted based on this space, and it is going to be exploded so that one word, I mean one sentence is going to be splitted in multiple rows, right? And we have given that name as name as alias as word, right? And on that word, we are just going to group by on the word just to group by and do a count, right? Then only we'll be able to the same, it does the same word group by, and this count star count is right going to do the same function whatever we have done it with the reduce by key, right? It is going to do the same function, and finally we are just going to display it. So let's run this one. We'll see whether we are getting the same output or not. Yeah, see, we are getting the output. Hello is 4 times here, hi is 2 times here. Now you see whether hello is 4 times here, how is 2 times, how is 2 times hello, and hi is 2 times, sorry, how is 3 times, hi is hi is 2 times, how is 3 times. So it is matching. So we are getting the same output, but the code that we have written in different ways, right? So using different level APIs. So now we have seen like how we can write the code using this data frame. Using data frame, we have achieved the word count program, right? Similarly, we are just going to take this one, right? We'll create one more. And whoever is comfortable with SQL, it will be easier for them, right? It is just going to do one um, like the same thing that we are trying to do here. Generally what we are trying to do is like here it is a simple print statement that we have. Okay, now what count if whatever the data frame that we have created here, right? The same data frame we are trying to create a temporary view or table, right? So create or replace a temp view. So it is going to create it treated as a table here onwards, right? Like you can query this table. This is going to be the table name. Like see here, simple SQL queries we are writing, right? So once we use this create or replace temp view, right, it is going to be created as a table on top of your data frame, right? So now if you see simple queries that we are writing, simple SQL style queries. So Spark.SQL, and here what we are trying to do, if you see, it is a normal SQL, right? We are just trying to use the explore function and split based on this space. We are giving the name as what, and we are just going to count it outside this one. This is a simple SQL query that you should understand. So, right, let me run this one, right? You see, we have got the output in the same way, right? So, hello is 4 times, hi is 2 times, how is 3 times, the same. So we got the same output. So now we have seen, right, how we have got the output of this word count program using 3 different style. Like one is using RDD, that we have seen like how we have done it. We have got the output. Then second, we have seen it like how using data frame we have done it, and we have got the same output. Similarly, using Spark SQL, right, we have seen like how we have got the output, and the same output we have got it. Now if you wanted to run it all of them in the same and also we can run it, right? So let's create one more notebook. We just wanted to run everything at the same time, right? So if you remember, there is a duplicate happening here, so I just remove that. Please, let's run this one otherwise. You see what count we are seeing it using RDD, then we have seen it using DataFrame API, and we are seeing it using word count. So anyway, we can run the code and see now. So we have understood like how we went step by step and seen output of each stage in the RDD style, and we understood all these functions that what we have used it, right? And we have understood like for the basics of like what is a Python variable, what is a RDD, how it gets distributed across the cluster. We have not seen it visually, but we should understand it, and the tag level detail that we'll be seeing in a different video. But just to understand this program, this much basic understanding is needed. So we have seen this as well. And with that, we have done all this practical, and we have seen like how we got the output in different uh, um, level APIs, right? Low level API and DataFrame and Spark SQL and higher level API. So we have seen all this. So hope you understood it. Thank you. We'll see you in the next video.